Hey guys, HackerSploit here, back again with another video, and welcome back to the Python scripting series. Now I know I haven't uploaded a video in this series for a long time, especially in Python, and as promised earlier during the schedule and in the previous Python 3 video, we're going to be looking at creating our very own tools and utilizing the Python programming language to essentially create various tools that can use to automate tasks, to automate various aspects of the penetration testing lifecycle. So without further ado, let's get started. Now, as you've probably read by the title of this video, we'll be looking at creating an Nmap scanner. Now, this is going to be part of a larger project, and we're going to be creating every weekend, really. We're going to be working on each of the modules that will then fit into the larger script. So this script is essentially going to be an all-in-one reconnaissance slash enumeration slash fuzzing tool that will essentially have all the tools necessary for you to automate the process, or at least make it a little bit easier. And also we'll be looking at trying to implement a documentation system or a web interface. Alright, so for this video, let's start off with creating a very simple Nmap scanner with Python 3. Now, for those of you who have watched my my video on Python 2 where I actually created this, I really did not give it any useful functionality. I simply explained how the Nmap module for Python works. So hopefully now I can explain it a little bit better. So my development environment for this entire project will be as follows. I'm currently running Kali Linux. All right, so you can test it out on any Linux distribution or on Windows if you want. Just make sure to install the Python Nmap module. All right, now we're going to also be using Python 3. So again, because of the fact that Python 2 is almost getting deprecated or losing support I think in 2020, so I think it's time to move on to Python 3. I've fully learned it and I really enjoy using it, and the differences are very minor. Alright, so as you can see, I'm using Visual Studio Code as my integrated development environment, and I have the Python extensions installed from the extensions manager right over here. I've set up my, if you can just take a look, we have set up my interpreter that is going to be used for the project. So make sure you set it as Python 3. All right, so I'm going to be discussing various methods and various Nmap methods, and I'll explain, hopefully I can explain what each and every one does. All right, so the program that we're going to create today is we're going to create a very simple program that will ask the user for an IP address that they want to scan. It'll then prompt them, it'll then ask them for to select a type of scan that they want to run. For example, we could have a SYN scan, a UDP scan, or a complete comprehensive scan that will include operating system fingerprinting, service fingerprinting, an aggressive scan, SYN scanning, and also using the default scripts that come with Nmap. All right, so to get the Python Nmap module installed, make sure you have pip, and for the appropriate version, you make sure you have pip installed for Python 3. So let me just open up my terminal here, and I'll increase the font size here. Just give it a second. There we are. All right, so to install it, all you need to do is simply type in, you simply need to type in pip3 install, and you have your Python Nmap, if I'm not mistaken. So just hit enter, and they should install the Python Nmap module. Just give it a few seconds to start collecting the details, and there you are. So I already have it installed, and as you can see, the latest version is Python Nmap version 0.6.1. all right, so we are pretty much good to go at this point. All right, so let me just go back into my development environment here, and the first thing we are going to do is we are going to need to import Nmap. So to do that, as you probably know, through the syntax of Python, is done by typing in import Nmap. All right, and that's as simple as that. So we've imported the Nmap module, and now we can use the various classes and methods that come within the module, which are extremely helpful. We're then going to create a variable called scanner, and this is going to be used to call the class, the Nmap port scanner class. So to do that, we simply type in Nmap, and we use the port scanner class right over here, and we can also just add the two the two brackets there. All right, so if you hover over the port scanner right over here, it should give you a bit more information about the class. So there you are. You can go ahead and inspect it if you've set up your development environment correctly. All right, so we have assigned the variable, we're using the variable to call. So whenever we use the variable, we are going to be extending the functionality of the port scanner, or of the Nmap module really, or the port scanner class. All right, so now we're going to prompt the user. We're just going to say welcome And of course, as I said, this is going to be part of a larger program. So this is going to be one function. So when we're going to be compiling everything together, this is going to be one part of the entire larger program or script. And it'll be completely open source. And a lot of you guys can improve it if you want. You can fork this on GitHub and improve it in any way you feel is much better or will increase the performance, the efficiency, etc. All right, so we're going to say welcome. This is a simple Nmap automation tool. All right, so simple Nmap automation tool, and that's pretty much it for that line. We are now just going to add a divider here. So I'll just create a small little divider here that will just separate this from anything else that we are actually going to get started with. All right, so now we are going to prompt the user to enter the IP address that they want to scan. And to do this, we're going to be using, we'll assign it a variable, and since we're inputting the data, we can prompt them and then wait for the input. And I'll show you how to do that. So we're just going to create a variable called IP address, and that is going to be equals to the input, and we have the prompt there that's going to prompt the user to input. So we're going to say please enter your, or we can just please enter the IP address you want to scan. All right, so you want to scan. All right, and we can just give it a nice little colon right over there, so we have great punctuation. And then we're going to print out we're going to say, we're just going to make sure that the user has entered the IP correctly. So we're going to ask them if this is the correct IP. So we're going to say the IP you entered is, and since the value is already, we've already given IP address the value, or the user has already inputted it, we can simply just give it a nice little space here and use the variable IP address there to display what the user entered. All right, and the type is going to be that of the variable itself, or the data that the user inputs. Of course, we're going to be sanitizing the input to make sure that that no other pieces of text are entered, because if the user enters any strings here, it'll really not be helpful. All right, so now we can now create another variable here that is going to ask the user to select the type of scan they want to run. All right, but before we do that, let me just save this and make sure everything is working correctly. So I'm just going to run the Python file in the terminal, and for some reason my compiler here is not allowing me to actually execute this. Let me just make sure I have the correct Python version here. So let me use Python3 like so, and let me just run this one more time. If it still gives me the error, let me just run it in my terminal here. All right, so cd desktop, and we're just going to run Python3, and that's going to be scanner.py, and there we are. So welcome, this is a simple Nmap automation tool. Please enter the IP address you want to scan, 68.1.1. I'm going to hit enter, and there we are. So that is working perfectly. It's going to even prompt or give you the IP that you entered, which is awesome. Now we can extend the functionality a little bit more. All right, so we are going to be calling the variable response. So this is going to be the response that the user gives when prompted or asked as to what scan they want to run. All right, and again, we're going to be prompting or waiting for the user input here. We're going to have a multi-line, we're going to have a multi-line string we're going to have a multi-line strings here. So we are going to essentially just make sure that this goes to a new line, so to the next line. So we're going to say please enter the type of scan you want to run. So the type of scan, sorry about that, the type of scan you want to run, and we'll move on to the next line. And let me just tab this right over here. We can indent it so it matches that, and we're just going to say option 1 is going to be let me just make sure that is correctly lined there. Sorry about that. Let me just indent that correctly. All right, there we are. So we're going to say option 1 is going to be a synac scan. So synac scan, punctuate that correctly. And we're going to say option 2 is going to be, let's see, a UDP scan. Of course, we'll be increasing the functionality of this scanner, but for now, let's focus on very basic options that we can provide. Let's say we want to use now, we want to perform a comprehensive scan. And that can be denoted as follows, and you can also give the user a bit of an idea of what this scan will do exactly, but for that, that's fine. Now we can also say, let me just get out of that indentation, we can now print this out and say we can also make sure that the user has selected the option correctly. So we can say selected we have selected option, and we can just give it a nice little colon there, and again we use the variable to which the value is assigned, like so. All right, now we can use our conditional statements to either run scans depending on the answer that or depending on what the user wants to run in terms of a scan. So option 1 is a syntax scan, option 2 is a UDP scan, and option 3 is a comprehensive scan. All right, so to do this we get started with the if statement. So if well, we don't need to get started with the equal sign. So we're going to say if response is equal to 1. All right, so that is the syntax scan. Then I want you to do the following. All right, so we are going to say if response is equal to 1, we want to first of all print the Nmap version out. We then want to initialize the scanner, or use the scanner variable to call the Nmap class, so that we can essentially start the scan, and we can provide the arguments in regards to the amount of ports that you want to scan, and the Nmap options or arguments that you need to provide to in order to perform the syntax scan. All right, so let me show you what we're going to do. So we are going to, let me just make sure that is indented correctly. All right, so we're going to say print, we're going to print out the Nmap version. So I'm just going to add some text here. We're going to say Nmap version is as follows. We'll give it a nice little space here, and we're going to say scanner.nmap. So we're using the scanner variable, and now we're calling the additional functionality. So scanner.nmap version, and we can then use the parentheses right over there. We don't need to specify anything else. All right, so that is going to print out the Nmap version, and now we can actually get started with scanning. So we're going to say scanner.scan, and in here we provide the IP address. If you remember in my Python 2 video, we actually specified the IP address within the script, which is not cool. It's much better if a user can input the IP address that they want to scan. All right, so we are going to say IP address, the variable IP address, which we assigned earlier, which is not like that, it is like so. And now we're going to specify the range of ports. So for a default scan, we're just going to scan the ports from 1 to 1024, or you can run even the entire spectrum of ports if that's what you want. And of course, we'll be customizing it. All right, so now we can then specify the argument. So we want to verbose the output, and we're going to perform a simple syntax scan. So that is denoted by SS. So those are the arguments. So the scanner requires all of these. It's very simple to understand what's going on here. Just like if you would run a simple Nmap scan in your terminal, you first provide the Nmap. You type in Nmap. You then provide the IP address, the port, and the type of scan you want to run. Now, of course, if you don't specify the port, it's going to scan the 1,000 of the most popular ports, which you can do. But it's always good to have that in place in case you want to customize, customize the range or the types of ports you want to scan. All right, so we have essentially started the scan. Now we need to print out the scan info. All right, so the scan info will display various bits of information, like, for example, TCP, the services, and the method. So if it's a connect method, it will display that. So to do that, we simply type in print. We're printing it out. So we're going to say print, and we're going to say scanner.scaninfo. And it'll give you this right over here if you have IntelliSense enabled in your integrated development environment. All right, so we're just displaying the scan info, and now we need to print. We now need to display whether or not the IP address is up or down. When I say up or down, whether it's active, it's connected to the internet, it's reachable, or it's unreachable. So to do this, we're going to say print. And we're going to be making a use of the state method that comes with Nmap. So I'll show you how to use it. So we're just going to put in some text. So we're going to say IP status. So just so the user understands what's going on, and we'll leave a nice little space there. And we're going to call scanner. We're going to say scanner, and in your square brackets, we're going to give the IP address variable. So IP address. Let me just make sure that is spelled out correctly. So IP address. And IP address.state, and that is going to essentially show if the IP address is up or down, so the user knows whether it's online or offline. All right, we have our parentheses here, and now we need to actually print all the protocols. Now, the protocols essentially just prints out what protocol you're scanning for, whether it's TCP or UDP. That's essentially what you're going to be printing it out. And of course, you can edit the order in which you want all of these results displayed. This is totally up to you. All right, so we're going to say print. Well, we have entered the scan information. Now, yeah, if we're talking, we have entered the state. Yeah, we probably now should display what protocol we're scanning for. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open the brackets here, and we're going to say scanner. Scanner, of course, the IP address. It's important to always specify the value of the IP address here. IP address in square brackets, and this is .all protocols. All right, .all protocols, and open the brackets right over here. And we'll go down down over here, and now we need to essentially display the open ports. That's probably the most important bit of information here. Now, to do this, we use the keys method. All right, now the keys method will essentially return all the active ports, or all the ports that are reachable within the specified range. All right, so to do that, the syntax is extremely simple to understand. All we need to do is type in print, so because we are displaying it, and we can say the open ports are going to be and we'll give it a space, and we're going to say scanner, and of course we specify the IP address here. So IP address, and that is going to be we need to specify the type of protocol, so TCP in also square brackets, and then the TCP dot keys. All right, so the keys method allows you to display, as I mentioned earlier, or will actually return all the active ports available within the specified range. All right, so that is how to use that. Now, we have currently finished one of these conditional statements, and of course we have to use the elif statement here. But before we do that, let's actually test the functionality, and we'll test the first option that we have catered for, if that is a syntax scan. All right, so let me just run this in my terminal. I'll actually keep that open now so we can have it on standby. Desktop. All right, so Python3, and we're running the scanner.py. All right, so please enter the IP address you want to scan. I'm going to try my router, because it probably has about 3 ports open, 192.168.1.1, and it's going to ask us to enter the type of scan we want to run. And of course we see our first error here. We haven't actually switched to the next line right over here. So before we actually do that, let me actually add that piece of code right over here, so that we actually move on to the next line. All right, so we'll just use the n command right over here. Whoops, that my bad. And that is going to be the n command. And there we are. So that goes on to a new line, and we'll just break this right over here, and we'll start that one more time. 0.1.1, and it's going to ask us for our IP address, for the type of scan that we want to run. Since we've indicated for option 1, I'm going to hit 1. So it's going to tell us you've selected option 1. It's going to print out the Nmap version. It's then going to print out the scan info, which you can remove if you don't need. The IP status is up. You can see right over here. The protocol we'll be using is TCP. The current open ports are 22, 23, and 80. All right, so it's displaying the information that we wanted. Now, many of you will say, well, this isn't really information that is displayed or formatted correctly, and I totally understand and agree. We are going to be looking at how to get only the information we want. For example, we don't need it to display all of this right over here. We can essentially sort it out so it displays it in a much better way, or a much understandable way, similar to what we have here with the IP status. All right, now if I was to run the script one more time, and I enter an IP address on my local area network that that does not actually exist or is not online, it should be able to tell us that it is offline. All right, so there we are. You can see IP status is down, and of course we're going to get an error here given by the fact that it's not currently online, which we'll be sorting out as we move along with this project. All right, so that is the first option catered for. Now we use the elif statement here, and we're going to say if we're going to provide another varied conditional statements here in case the user enters another option, which is option 2 next. And we can pretty much copy this, except this is going to be for the UDP scan. So we need to change a bit of the syntax to actually match that of a UDP, to actually make it work for UDP. And I'll show you what we need to change exactly. Now I do not want to damage the indentation, so I'm just going to copy this right over here. And because we do not need to type it out, we do not need to type everything out. So what we need to edit is we can leave the port range as it is. We don't need to change anything there. Instead of verbose output, we can change that into SU. So we're scanning for UDP ports. Scan info is fine. IP status is also fine. The protocols are fine. We only need to change the TCP into UDP right over here, so it displays the UDP ports that are currently active or online. All right, and if we save this and run, we actually should see that this should be able to scan UDP ports. So I'm going to run it. I'm going to enter one of my Windows computers, 192.168.1.102. Going to hit enter. I'm going to hit 2 for UDP scan. You've selected option 2. The Nmap version is version 7.70. And we're just going to give that a few seconds to scan for all the UDP ports available. It should return the port 137 right over here. Excellent. So we know it does work. And it's telling us the IP status is up, UDP, and the open ports are port 137. We'll be looking at how to get rid of all of this information right over here. But for now, do not worry about any of that. Just focus on the functionality and the fact that it is returning the information that we want. All right, so we have our final version here that we need to, our final option, sorry, that we need to cater for. And that is going to be for the comprehensive scan, which is going to be like a complete scan. All right, so I'm just going to paste in what we copied earlier and we'll edit it appropriately. In this case, we are going to stick with TCP, and that is a comprehensive scan. So our comprehensive scan is going to be, of course, verbose output. We're going to use the SYN scan. So again, I'll just make sure that is there one more time. SV for service fingerprinting or service enumeration. SC for defaults, for the default scripts, and an aggressive scan, and operating system detection. So quite comprehensive in terms of what it does. You can edit the amount of ports you want to scan for. You can change that right over here, and we'll be adding that functionality so the user can enter the amount of ports that they want to scan for. All right, and this should work now for the comprehensive scan. We are not going to test it because I'm pretty sure it is going to work. Now we can print in our last else statement here in case anyone enters anything funny or anything over 4, so that we can actually just exit the program. So we're just going to make it a very simple exit right over here. So if sorry, what am I doing? Else, well, we can just say, we can also use the elif instead of else. So elif response is equal to, well, we can actually say greater than or equal to 4. So if it is anything like 4 or greater than 4 or 4 really, then it should print out this. Now, of course, I have forgotten to include the colon here, which would have caused a lot of issues. And we'll just go down right over here, and we're just going to say print, and we're just going to say please enter a valid option. Okay, and this is pretty much what we're going to be looking at in this video, or what I wanted to cover in this video. We can, of course, extend the functionality a little bit more to make it so that once the user has got their results, it re-loops the program if the user so wishes to. But for now, let's just stick to this as the closure to this program, or to this simple module that we've worked on in this episode. So I'm just going to save this, and let's test if this script actually works or is functional, and we can actually use it for getting results. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drag this right over here so we can see everything that's being displayed, and we're going to run Python3, and there we are, Python3 scanner.py, and we're going to enter the IP address. So I'm just going to run a comprehensive scan 0.1.102 on my Windows operating system. There we are, comprehensive scan. I'm going to hit option 3, and it tells us you have selected option 3. The Nmap version is Nmap version 7.70. And of course, given that this is a comprehensive scan, it's going to take a while. So I'm just going to wait for this to complete, and I'll get back to you when that's done. All right, the scan is completed, and it pretty much gave us the information we were expecting in terms of what we wanted it to display. So display the Nmap version, the scan information, the status of the IP address, the protocol that we're using, and the open ports. Now, given that this is a comprehensive scan, it should have displayed more, like the operating system that was detected. But of course, we haven't added that functionality yet. Now, a lot of you guys are asking me, well, this is very, very simple, and I get the idea. As I said, we're going to be working on a larger script that will incorporate every aspect of the information gathering / footprinting / enumeration stage of penetration testing. So it's going to include tools for IP addresses, web application scanning, web application directory traversal, all of that good stuff. It's going to be a complete script. So we're going to work at it one module at a time. Now, of course, I'm not done with this, and I would like to see what you guys think and whether or not you can improve it. Definitely, if you can, this will be on GitHub. You can fork it and improve it, and let me know once you've actually made or you've improved it, so that I can actually take a look, and we can then we can then release it as another version, or we can actually create a branch. All right, so with that being said, that's going to be it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions or suggestions, let me know in the comment section, on my social networks, on my website, and I'll be seeing you in the next video. Peace.